People that I know and love. And so we're going to jump right into this. We are going to look at HyperDocs today. And before we get started, we have the Hyper Girls on here today. So I don't know if anybody else is excited about that, but I am. So hopefully you are too.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, so excited to have them here today. So lunch and learn, hopefully you had time to grab you something to eat, grab you something to drink, and we're actually just going to go through, and this is like a beginner course. If you've never used HyperDocs, maybe you want to create HyperDocs, you want to learn a little bit more about it. Today, you will hopefully be able to start to create your own HyperDoc and at least have lots of resources in order to help you get started and get on your way. This will be a collaborative experience, so if you guys want to chime in, feel free to do so. Don't make me do all the talking, please. This is my information. If you need anything after today, please reach out to me. Feel free to shoot me an email. You can also find me at NicoleTaylor.com. You can find me on Facebook or on Twitter. At Facebook, I'm just facebook.com/Nicole. Twitter, my handle is at Nicole as well. And so if you have any HyperDoc questions, I wouldn't hold on to them since we have the Hyper Girls on the chat. This would be a great time to ask your questions, but you can also feel free to reach out to me. And if I don't have the answer, then I will probably be able to find someone who can find that answer for us. So today we're going to look at what is a HyperDoc. We're going to actually go through the steps to develop our own HyperDoc. And then we'll talk about the HyperDoc process. And I have lofty goals that in 30 minutes, we're going to do all that and you're going to create a HyperDoc. So hopefully somebody out there is believing in me. This is actually a remix presentation that came from Janet. So Janet, thanks so much. That's one of the things that we'll talk about today as we dive into HyperDocs, that it's just a beautiful community of educators too that are doing great things, sharing great things, but just remember, like, as you use other people's work, to just give them a shout out, because it does take work to get these things together. So we'll dive into more of that a little later. So what is a HyperDoc? A HyperDoc is an interactive lesson that replaces the traditional teacher in the front worksheet on the desk, teacher-centered learning, and it puts learning right in the hands of students. So before you ask, no, it's not a web quest. Before you ask, no, it's not a Google search. It's a full lesson. It's a full lesson that starts with standards and takes kids through the learning process and assesses their learning. Gives students an opportunity to demonstrate what they know creatively in various ways. And so we'll do a simple HyperDoc in just a moment, because I just believe in anything that you're going to learn, you have to do the thing. And so today the thing is HyperDocs, and I will talk a little and we will do a lot. HyperDocs, they begin with a strong lesson design. So in anything, this is just another example that in anything that we do, we have to start with our standards. Here in Texas, we use the TEKS. I believe most of the other parts of this country are using Common Core, but that's where you start. You look at what you want students to know, learn, and be able to do, and that is exactly where we start with HyperDocs. And then the HyperDoc just helps you to curate quality instructional content. Good teaching is just good teaching. Good pedagogy is just good pedagogy. Great activities go along with those standards. And so this just helps you to organize it in a way that helps students get from point A to point B to point C. And I also like it because as an instructor, I can also use the process in the feedback along the way to evaluate my work as a lead learner as well. HyperDocs package learning in a way that engages the learners. And I want to say also, not only is this engaging for the learner, but it's also engaging for the teacher. As an instructor, if I'm working with students or if I'm working with teachers, if it's not fun for me, it's probably not fun for the learner. And so this is actually one of those materials that I lean on heavily, whether it's PD, if I'm co-teaching, if I'm modeling a lesson with the teacher, simply because it's also fun for me. With HyperDocs, they encourage collaboration. Every student has a voice. One thing I love about HyperDocs is that you can build in different opportunities for students to shine. I have 3 kids. All 3 of them are extremely different. My baby girl, I have 2 girls, one girl and 2 boys, and my girl is an introvert. Her teachers are actually on here today, Kelly and Chelsea. Hey, whoop, whoop. One thing that I have noticed with them is that they use a lot of tools that allowed my introverted daughter to shine. Don't ask her to stand up in front of a room full of people. That would be just nerve-wracking for her. But if you know your students and you know what they need, you know how to differentiate, you know how to give them a voice without, in a comfortable setting, you can use tools and embed them in your HyperDocs to ensure that all kids are able to have a voice. HyperDocs also allow us to create and share authentic products which develop critical thinking and problem solving. And you guys know, this is really what we're teaching. I don't care if you're a social studies teacher or if you're a math teacher or if you're a science teacher, you're really teaching problem solving and critical thinking. We just have standards that help us to push that out. But ultimately, we want to teach kids how to think, and we want to teach kids how to problem solve, because those are lifelong skills that transfer into all areas of life. Okay, I said I was going to do a little talking and then we were going to do a little working. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to just go on and look at a HyperDoc, a simple HyperDoc that will allow you to get through. This is an Explore, Explain, Apply HyperDoc. And so what the purpose of this HyperDoc is I want you guys to actually experience a HyperDoc. So what you're going to do, I'm going to actually put you guys in groups so that you can work through this HyperDoc. If you will go ahead and just open up another tab, and you are going to go to this bit.ly. It is case sensitive. And so I am just going to assign you to a breakout room. And what I would like for you to do when you get in the breakout room, it's perfectly fine if one person records for the group, because you're actually going to submit your HyperDoc so that we can see your work. And so this will actually allow you to go through the entire process to see what it is that we're actually spending time on learning today. When you get in your groups, introduce yourself, make sure people know who they're working with, and then we'll spend about probably about 6 to 7 minutes just working through the HyperDoc, because I want to make sure that those of you, this is HyperDocs 101, so some of you, this may be your first experience with HyperDocs. So I want to make sure that you're actually able to read through the HyperDoc and that you're able to, within your group, within your breakout room, capture your answers. So if you'll see now, I have placed everyone in a group. And so what you're going to do is now, if everyone will go ahead and join your breakout group, make sure that you have that HyperDoc open. And I will see you back. It is 12:20. I will see you back at 12:26. It's 12:20 Central Standard Time.
We're back. That was so fun.
That was so fun, Nicole. I love
it. Yay! Welcome back. So
it's so fun to be the student, to be the learner.
And I totally planned that hiccup, Kelly. You played right into the script. Great job. Y'all did a great job of letting the teacher be the teacher. Great job. So I just wanted to see what you guys put on what you guys learned about HyperDocs. And so I see like if material's good enough to share, don't limit the teachers. Love how the article was an example of a HyperDoc lesson. So hopefully you guys were able to just kind of go through and experience and see how simple it is to really like package a real quality lesson into a HyperDoc. So I'm going to keep this party moving. We probably, I always have like lofty goals of like solving all the world's problems in 15 minutes, and we probably won't get to create our own today, but you will have a template and you will be able to, I don't know, maybe while you're having dessert with your lunch today, you can go through and you can work through some of that. So HyperDocs are meant to be engaging. As you can see, like I could have easily pulled up those articles. We could have read through it. I could have just talked because as you can see, I do love to talk. But teachers, we should see ourselves as students also. Students are curious by nature. We just need to provide opportunities for them to be curious. They are amazing problem solvers when given the opportunity to create rather than consume information, to talk to each other rather than sit passively listening. They just need inspiration. And so, hey, Hyper Girls, I just quoted y'all. How is that to be like quoted right here, right now, right? So this is exactly what HyperDocs do. They give us the opportunity to allow kids to engage and connect. And we know the person doing the work, that's the person doing the learning. So we want kids to be highly engaged so that they're walking away as the learners. So as Explore, this is one thing that I could preach all day about. A worksheet on a Google Doc is still a worksheet. This is not a worksheet. I know they have some pretty amazing TPT worksheets or online PDFs. Taking that and putting some links on it does not make that a HyperDoc. It should really be a well thought out lesson that takes kids through the lesson cycle and that is directly connected to a standard. Kids should be creating something. They should be doing something. They should be able to demonstrate mastery. So what is a HyperDoc? Well, I can tell you what a HyperDoc is not. It is not a substitution. It is not a digital worksheet. It is not standardized. I could take that one HyperDoc that you guys use and I could probably slice and dice that bad boy up 10 ways and think of 10 different ways that I could use that. It is whatever you want it to be. It's very flexible. It's very engaging. It's very interactive, and it is transformative. I think this is a great way for teachers who are looking, maybe they're a little hesitant to use technology. Maybe they have one tool that they use. Send them to HyperDoc and say, hey, we can package your entire lesson. You don't have to be afraid. I'll help you walk through it because it really is like the plan right there in front of them as well. I will also say that Lisa, Kelly, and Sarah have a HyperDoc Handbook. So I'm going to actually point you to their website also, which has like so much information. But if you're the type of person and you want to hold a book and you want to be able to go through and highlight and add stickies, then this is also a great option to help you learn a little bit more about HyperDocs as well. So speaking of this amazing website that was just redone, I wanted to spend some time exploring HyperDocs also. I will be honest with you that when it comes to doing HyperDocs or creating HyperDocs, this is where I start. I don't start with a blank Google Doc or blank Google Slides because the HyperDocs community is huge. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm looking for something, it has already been created 20 times and shared. So if you go on HyperDocs.co, you will see that at the top, there is an option to find HyperDocs. Start there. Start there. So if I go here and I click on find, I can see templates. I can also see samples or examples of HyperDocs. And you'll see here that whatever I'm teaching, see, I see your face, it lit up. Bomb, right? So whatever I'm teaching, I can find it here on the site. So let's say that I'm a math teacher and I'm looking for examples of math HyperDocs. I simply click on mathematics and I have a treasure chest of various HyperDocs. And I can see some of them are slides. I can see some of them are docs. So I'm just going to click on this fractions on a number line HyperDoc, which is probably something that I will explore with Caden and Kaylee as they head into 4th grade. And I can see that this was created, looks like Lindsay created it. I can go through here and see what Lindsay has created. I can see the entire lesson. Just me, the type of teacher I am, I know that I'm going to have to switch some things out. Of course, if I wanted to use quizzes, I'd have to get my own code. But what I'm going to do is I can just go up here to File, make a copy. The one thing that I'm going to leave on here and I'm not going to erase is created by Lindsay, because I want to make sure that I give her credit for her hard work. But I can totally remix that and make it whatever I need it to be for my students. So I wanted to make sure that you guys could see where those are on HyperDocs.co. If you go to find, and then there are templates, and so we got here by samples. So that is there for you as well. So HyperDoc in 5 super fast steps, because I wanted to be done in 30 minutes, and I'm going to maybe be like a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes over, but I wanted this to be a quick walkthrough for you guys. So step 1, we start with our standards. That's everything that we do in the classroom should be rooted in grade level, content specific standards. What does the state, what do the people, that's what I like to call them, the people, say that kids should know and be able to do? That's exactly where we start. Step 2, you can choose your learning cycle. And again, if you go on the HyperDoc site, like, you don't have to create, see this really nice looking template? They have templates there. I mean, if you want to go forth and create your own, go forth and be great. But I always start there because the templates are created. And so you can see that there are a few different choices for the learning cycle. You can do explore, explain, apply. You could use a workshop model, the 5E instructional model. I see that a lot as well. And then there's also the HyperDoc model, which has engage, explore, explain, apply, share, reflect, and extend. So if you want to take a stab at putting together your own HyperDoc, you can go right on the site and grab one of those templates, and that would be your step 2. Step 3, you can pick a package. So HyperDocs can be on slides, they can be on docs, they can be on maps. I've even seen them on drawings. I've even seen some hyper drawings as well. So you can decide how you want it to be. You could even go on there and get a sample and remix it if you wanted it to be packaged differently. Step 4, you need to build your flow. So I think this part is really important. So when I'm building a HyperDoc, this is one thing and I've used it with teachers and students, so many that I'm like thinking about this the whole time. So if I have kids doing 20 things, well, I'm not gonna ever do that because I don't wanna check 20 things for 20 plus kids. But you need to think about, like, how are you gonna get it to kids? How are you going to go? Because if I'm going to ask kids to do the work, I need to give them feedback so that they know that I'm actually totally invested in what they're doing and that I'm watching their work. So some things to think about, like, how are you going to give the HyperDoc to students? It's a great idea to send this out through Google Classroom. You could send it out so that students can only view it if everything's hyperlinked and they don't need to type anything. You could also send it out where every kid has their own copy. And then also just think about, how are you going to collect their thoughts? How are you going to collect their work or their products? And this can be as big or as small as you want it to be. Of course, if it's like one lesson, then that would determine how many things that I'm going to have kids do versus if it's over a unit. And then another thing to consider is how many clicks will it take for kids to complete the work, but also think of you. How many clicks will it take for you to get through all of the assignments that kids turn in as well? So that's step 4. So step 5 is to just design the HyperDoc, and the Hyper Girls have a YouTube channel that walks through a lot of these things that I'm talking about as well. And so you can actually find them on YouTube. I would suggest subscribing to the channel because I've noticed like they've updated the website. And so I've seen some updated videos as well, especially to help us get through remote learning also. So next, the apply. We're going to have to skip this part, dagger to my heart, but you can finish it on your own. This is actually a template that you can use that would help you. It'll help you walk through and create your own HyperDoc. I would love for you to do these, and feel free to email them or share them with me because I would love to see what you create. And so just thinking about walking through those steps. Maybe if you're still teaching, if you're wrapping up the school year, think about something that you're teaching next week, or think about something fun that you can do to wrap up the school year and reflect with your students as well. I know those have been a lot of conversations like, how do we wrap up the school year when everybody's in their own house? Or how do we celebrate? How do we reflect? This would be a great opportunity to allow kids to kind of reflect and connect through a HyperDoc. So determine your objective, figure out your learning cycle, which I've already figured that out for you. It's where we're using Explore, Explain, Apply. The package is a Google Doc. Build your flow, design your HyperDoc, and then share with me. I want to see it. So this was going with HyperDoc. Feel free to share that with me. This is actually a doc. So if anyone creates something cool and you want to throw it on that doc, please do so. And everyone who registered for this event, I will send that out to you as well. I'll send these slides in the HyperDocs that we create. Again, if you want to extend your learning, I would, have I mentioned that the HyperDocs girls, they redid their website? I don't know if I said that. So it's really cool. It's really neat. And they have a lot of even, there are also some courses on here to help you design your own HyperDocs. Many of the courses are totally free. So if you need to kind of take it slow and learn little by little at your own pace, I would suggest that you extend your learning on the HyperDoc site, which is just HyperDocs.co. So in reflecting, and this is actually a great HyperDoc, I feel like we could do like a whole like hour and a half to 3 hours just on this, on reflecting on your HyperDocs that you create. We just want to make sure that we are being very intentional on building a great lesson, right? Not just a digital worksheet. So some questions, and this is actually a HyperDoc. I believe it's in the, if you look under examples, I believe it's under professional development, because perhaps you want to take this back to your teammates, or maybe you're a teacher of teachers and you support teachers. This would also be a great way to evaluate the HyperDocs that you design. Does it follow a specific lesson design? Did you include the 4 C's? Are kids actually creating? Are they actually collaborating? Does it actually have them to critically think? And then also, like, what level of critical thinking and technology did you integrate? So these are just great things to just think through as you plan and as you go over your HyperDoc before you share it with students. So again, exploration, please go to the website and look that over as well. Thank you so much for joining me for this is like the fastest 30 minutes ever. Next week, we'll look at Seesaw. So if you are looking for a way to curate student work, to make connections with parents, Seesaw is a great option. And you don't have to choose between Seesaw and Google Classroom. You can totally do them both. But next Wednesday at 12:10, same time, same place, we'll be looking at Seesaw 101 to help you get up and get going. Again, there is my contact information. So if you need me, feel free to reach out to me. Share all of your cool HyperDocs that you're going to do, like as soon as we hop off. I know you're not even going to leave your computer. You're just going to dive into HyperDocs. I want to see what you do. Let me see it. Or feel free to throw it onto that collaborative HyperDoc doc that I will send out to you, because I'll send an email that has all of these resources for you as well. So thanks again for joining me for this week's HyperDoc Lunch and Learn. I hope that everyone has a great day.
Thank you, Nicole. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.